All right, party people. Happy Thursday. Welcome, welcome.
Almost June.
Gather in, come on in. Yes, we do have one day of May left.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, May 30th, 2024 will
We'll go down
in history, huh? If you have not heard, if you was at work or doing whatever it is that you've been doing, living your life really, okay? This is not news headquarters like it is at this house at all times. Donald Jethro Trump has been found on not one, not two, not 10, not even 20, not even 25, but 34 counts of various criminal things. Okay,
guilty on all charges,
on all the counts. Okay, if you don't live in this country, you saw what a shitty leader he was for us. So we're hoping. Listen, my parents are over the moon. I, the millennial, am a little. What are you doing?
I am so hot.
Maybe
I'm so excited.
I, the millennial, are skeptical. Okay.
Maybe I'm just excited.
I, the millennial, am skeptical because America be saying one thing and doing something else. Okay. We all know that if you run for president and you're convicted of a crime, you shouldn't be able to run for president again, especially as a former president. But America is an evolving reality show, so they be changing the rules all the time. So I'm like, go ahead, take this little victory. But America, we're all watching the same. We're all, shout out to Nipsey, take a victory lap and F Donald Trump. But we've been here before. Okay, we're all watching the same episode, and we saw the conclusion. Is this going to get us
banned because we said that?
I don't care. We saw the conclusion of this episode. So after this, however America chooses to move accordingly, just know we saw what happened, and y'all is changing up the rules. Okay, so he should not. This is great. All we want to hear is he going to prison, and or because we live in a world of both ends, but we'll take an or because you've been convicted of these crimes, you are no longer able to run for president of the United States. That's all we care about. That's all we want. Just keep that same energy. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Being
a baby boomer,
a baby boomer is excited. A millennial is skeptical. There we go. That is a generational gap.
That's a generational gap right there.
Okay, she excited. I'm excited too. Like I said, were we really even talking about the presumption of guilt versus innocence? Because it's Donald. Okay?
I was just concerned because they only needed one person to say that he wasn't.
If you've been in rap,
but I don't know how you could be unsure.
If you've been in rap beef land, okay. You know that certain people are calling out people's moles. If anybody in this trial has said, I'm not sure, they would have been considered a mole. Okay? They know what time it is. You need to find this man guilty. Is it dangerous? Could it have consequences for you? Absolutely. That's not the point. That's a generational gap. Okay?
Oh, happy day.
It's happy.
Oh,
it's happy day. With bated breath because we still don't really know what this is going.
I'll take a moment.
But the baby boomers are used to taking these very, very small victories.
I'll take a moment.
We'll take a victory lap. We be running the long game though, so we'll take the victory lap with you.
Y'all be running,
but we be wearing. Nipsey taught us well, huh? This is a sprint. Are you ready for the marathon? Because we're still in the marathon. We're still running the race. We ran this race well. Okay. Anyway, if you've been with us for any length of time, we have spent the entire month talking about generational gaps between, particularly baby boomers and millennials. We have had a plethora of conversations. We have had a mother-daughter interview. Mm-hmm. We've done some things, okay? But we're going to be doing a recap. Maybe you're new here. You don't know who we are. We've just talked for like 4 minutes about stuff that don't really pertain to the episode, but also works for the episode. And you're like, who are these black women? What's really going on? Anyway, you should definitely stick around because this episode is for you.
Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman.
we were commenting on how hot Pam is, but she chose to drink hotish tea. Oh, sorry. Ooh, shoot, cups up as I'm spilling. Welcome to Truthful Chats. We were talking about
I've had a little tickle in my throat, and so I decided to kind of drink something hot instead of cold, hoping to bake that down. But I didn't count in the sweat factor. So
she got on this hot thing. She in the change still, so
change is not gonna come. It has been coming for a long time.
There's probably things you can do for that. You need to watch some Queen of Fool videos or something.
Anyway.
Come on, all the sacred women. Anyway, if you're new here, welcome to Truthful Chats. This is our weekly podcast series under our Create Generational Wellness banner and moniker. Truthful Chats, the podcast, Create Generational Wellness, is really our goal. It's our aim, okay, for ourselves, okay?
Yes, God.
For you, for your family, and for the culture overall, okay?
Send me some change of life tips if you have any. I would be happy to take that.
Yeah, it's a wellness community, okay?
It's the wellness community.
We're trying to share wellness tips. We are primarily more emotional mental health wellness, but if you got physical things, we'll take that as well. Okay,
because that affects your emotional and mental health.
Well, indeed. Anyway, Create Generational Wellness, if you don't know the term and you're not familiar with it, that's great because we made it up. So if you hear anybody else using it and it's not related to the Truthful Chats podcast, Pam and Jess are nowhere in it, you know you have a problem, okay? You're probably talking to a duplicator and not an originator, all right? So check them. Typically here at Truthful Chats, under Create Generational Wellness, we have a theme of the month, and then Truthful Chats are where we unpack that theme. So we're in it. It's still May. It's the last Thursday of May. I think we had 5.
We did have 5.
We made it. Pray for us. We had some ideas of what was going to happen this month. Some of them happened. Some of them didn't. We've been consistent. That's really the point. Anyway, May's theme has been generational gaps because once we sort of started talking about changing the formatting of the show a little bit and how things work, we've been exploring really the 10 causes of what creates tension in a mother-daughter relationship, since that's what we're all about. 10. The top 10 things. But I feel like these really could apply to fathers
any kind of
and
relationship.
Sons, mothers and daughters.
Any kind
Y'all who be in them large age gap romantic relationships, your grandmama, your grandpa, anybody really. Okay, these are the things. So the first one we're talking about has been generational gaps for this month. And this is the wrap up, okay? If you clicked on it, you already know. So we're going to be talking about what we've been talking about all this month, giving little recaps for the episodes. These are episodes, chats, Truthful Chats. Chats 70 through 73. Okay, this is 74 that you're watching. So if you want to go back, these are like the 3 episodes we're going to be recapping, giving you some insight, some wisdom, some knowledge, what we learned, all the things. I have a couple visuals. You will bear with me as I use them. And it'll be a good time, okay? We just talking. It's easy, man. It's easy.
She always has to calm me down about, Mom, just talk. It doesn't have to be
a podcast.
You don't have to have 20 points and 20 bullets.
It's not a lecture, baby.
It's not a lecture. It's not a sermon. We're just talking. It's not a Sunday school lesson. We're just talking.
It's the teacher. Anywho, so when we talk about generational gaps, we started off, this was episode 70. Let me make sure I got the visual for you so you know what's going. Zon. Za. Shout out to us, was Beats. I don't know, him and Alicia said that one day. It just really got in my spirit. Anyway, so this is episode 70. Y'all. And this was our intro episode. And this was us really just, I like that better. Sorry, I had to fix our orientation. We was looking a little crazy.
Yeah.
Gotta do it. And this episode is just sort of our intro episode. Do y'all know this is an AI photo on this cover, by the way? Listen, I feel bad for all the babies who like The internet is all you
I didn't
ever
know
know.
that was an AI cover.
I'm an old millennial, okay? So I remember when the internet wasn't this savvy.
That's an AI picture?
Yeah. I remember when the internet wasn't this savvy. They really out here vexing us. You also need to be careful with your image because they about
It
to
could be
start
anywhere.
Your face can end up on someone else's AI body. Matter of fact, I saw somebody's face today that I felt like I recognized, and I was like, I'll be reaching out to them about that. Saying all that to say, lawyer up. Anyway, on this first installment that we had of this chat 70, we were just talking about this is one of the main topics that causes tension in mother-daughter relationships, and really in any relationships where there is a generational gap. Okay, there are just some generic things that when you put two different age groups together, okay, in any intimate relationship, right, things are going to come up. Okay, yes. So older generations are going to have a hard time because they're older. In any capacity. I'm like, she a baby boomer, I'm a millennial, but sometimes when I talk to the alphas and the Gen Zs, I be like, I don't really know what's going on.
I don't even try.
I don't know these
Those
words.
alphas and Gen Zs, I just be, hey baby, how are you?
I don't know what you're saying. Because, sometimes we can't comprehend the struggles, the realities, the complexities of what's going on. Technology is changing rapidly more and more every day. I feel like I got my finger on the pulse of some things, but other things I be like, y'all can have that. And things are just changing really rapidly. Social norms are changing. I think gender roles are like all the things is rapidly changing. The monies, everything is changing. Go ahead. You were gonna.
I was gonna say the Z's and the what's below
alphas,
the Z's and the alphas. I think the social media rules their world. You know what I mean? It rules.
For sure. I be on it and I be off it.
Yeah.
I could really care less.
Yeah. We can get on, bad. We can get off. We can. She's a
little bit worse than me.
No, because you always say that, but I use it for two things really. I use it for information. As you get older, I read this the other day.
For a tee-hee-hee, we know that.
No, I was reading.
To be so intellectual. She
I'm telling you,
a petty, nosy bone.
That's the second part. I'm gonna do the second part. The first part is information. I was reading something yesterday. I went to this class on anti-aging. How do you keep yourself from aging mentally? What are some of the things they can do? And one of the biggest points they made was to be constantly learning. So for me,
about people's lives,
not about doing, everybody be having the ads on there about the classes you could take this class. That's how I found out about the anti-aging class, which I really got some good information from.
Do you know who Pam is? If anybody, we talking about old Kanye. Okay, you remember old Kanye on College Dropout, the interludes? My degrees. I'm gonna give you my degrees. My degrees. Pammy is for my degrees. Pammy's about the classes. But I guess that's why, because she's trying to prevent her anti-aging. She's in her anti-aging era. So go ahead.
In my anti-aging era.
Stuff.
Because of that, when things, they know my interests. They know what to pop up on my Instagram. Because they're
tracking you with algorithm.
So they're tracking me. So they know that if you
curated information.
I'm dealing with my sister with her dementia. This time I'm trying not to be in that category. So anything that pops up about how you can keep your brain alert, sharp, learning. My therapist even told me that's one of the things that's helping me stay sharp is that I'm conscious.
Being on social media?
No, I'm conscious.
This how you started. Did she not start social media?
I'm constantly interested in learning. And so things come up with classes that I can take
via social
that
media.
I learned. So
the point was she spends more time on social media than me.
And I'm looking for learning
and it's true. Whatever you're on there.
But I am also keeping up with people.
Whatever you're on, that's all I really wanted you to say. She got to go through. I'm taking the high road. That's that baby boomer. I was raised in the 50s. I have good breeding. I would never.
There are a lot of people at church. I like to stay connected to the young people at church. I like on Sundays to be able to say to them something that I realized was going on in their life because I was on the social media. And you're not going to shame me. I'm not
trying to shame you. My point was you're on it more than me. That's all I'm saying. I'm an old millennial.
We're talking about Drake.
Unless we're talking about the rap beef, okay? This is what I said. Everybody's interest is their interest. And I'm not just on social media. I'm on YouTube. That's really
social media.
Nah, that's really the university. YouTube University is where it's at. Social media is for the techies.
As you can see,
the point is there's a generational gap.
There's a gap here.
Some people be on technology a little bit more than others, but that's because
for different reasons.
I'm a child of the technology. I remember when the technology was not that popping. Granted, this is an AI cover. Getting back to the point, this is an AI cover. Okay.
All right.
Anyway, things are rapidly changing, inherently changing. And so with that, I think sometimes younger generations feel like we were talking about in this episode, that the advice, the life lessons, the things that their mothers, grandmothers, aunties, etc., are trying to impart and instill can feel irrelevant or outdated for whatever reason. But that's not always true. But we also threw a monkey wrench, a more collective monkey wrench into the discussion on generational gaps because we are Black women. The women,
and there's always an additional layer.
The women in the pictures
of whatever it is. Women.
And so we couldn't just be like, there's generational gaps because of age. There's also generational gaps
culturally
because of racism and sexism. When it comes to being particularly Black women in America. So we had to incorporate that as part of our generational gaps conversation. We are huge history buffs around here. If you are new to the show, every February, we tend to stay Black, be Black, and be Black, be Black, Black, Black. We celebrate Valentine's Day and whatnot.
All of those.
I am.
Okay. Good.
We celebrate Valentine's Day and whatnot. Shout out to the lovers. But we also celebrate our people. So if you're new here, we usually do Living Black History. We talk about the old stuff, the elders, the shoulders upon which we stand, okay? But we also want to highlight what's going on now. So last year, we have these are our first few episodes, but we highlighted incredible people that we know that are selling educational toys for Black kids, working in Black theater with our organization Support Black Theater that we're a part of. We talked about people who are selling. Our good friend Dr. Q, we show his cup sometime. He has a whole dental
He's a Black
kit.
dentist.
Black dentist, comes from a long line of Black dentists. So we like to give you a little history,
dental hygiene products,
a little history, and a little cultural relevancy as to what's going on now. So of course we bought this to you this year, which was Living Black History. So we thought it would be cool, to give a couple history lessons, run down some things, but trying to close the gap, if you will, okay, between the elders and the youngins, because the elders be having all the history that makes them sort of sometimes can stop running in place. And then as you go down through the generations, some of these kids don't know nothing from nothing about nothing because they feel like they're growing up in a post-racial society, which we can all beg to differ. So we thought, why not close the gap? So we did this episode 58, which is our Truthful Chat, Living Black History, the Evolution of Black Love, which was interesting. We also did, went back the wrong way. We also did Living Black History, the Evolution of Soul Food. Great time. Check that out. We also did the Evolution of Church. That was very interesting. And that'll be available for your consumption. The live episode is still up, but the playback is coming soon. So stay tuned for that. And then we did the Evolution of Parenting, which I think is sort of what led us into kind of having this discussion that we have now, in light of some of the things that we were talking about this month when it comes to generational gaps. But I think a lot of it probably subconsciously stemmed from this episode. So anyway, go back, check those out if you haven't seen them, because it's a good time. And we, Pammy likes to be well researched, so we coming to you with some heat.
It's the teacher in me.
So I think from the things that we learned and gleaned from doing those Black History Month episodes, we wanted to also convey firsthand experience. So Pammy being a baby boomer, a child of the 1950s,
Born in 1955.
We wanted
right,
to
mid-decade.
to give context, right? So just like, not we're just trying to give a historical lesson, but like she's also a person who's lived through these things. So when people try to tell you like that was so long ago, that happened so long ago, why are you worrying about it? You could be like, but Pammy was alive for that. So what is you really saying? Okay. Some of it is a little social resistance, but whatever. So we just decided to really just explore these things based on what we were talking about in real time. So for the baby boomers, between their overt racism, systemic oppression, right, the constant state of violence, death, literal death, limited educational opportunities, limited career opportunities.
Career, more so.
We really,
well, I can talk about that a little bit. I can talk about.
Well, let me finish.
All right.
We were positing the statement of we gave you a historical lens. This is somebody who's lived it, who is now raising a person coming generations after, who faced those things, but maybe not as harshly as you all face them. How do you raise a young black girl into a confident black woman? And for anybody who's raising any form of black kids, given that generational gap, right? Black baby boomer parents, or you got certain sets of grandparents raising, you know, baby boomers was raising a lot of Gen X kids. Gen X kids was raising a lot of millennial kids. Like, and we talked about later, which we'll talk about when we get to the interview, sort of this babies having babies phenomenon, right? That came along too, where we have a real big age gap, but some of y'all don't have an age gap with your parents. Like y'all was actually growing up
15,
as your
16
parents,
years maybe.
Yeah, as your parents were growing up, and how does that relate age gap relationally as well? So we were talking about those things on episode 70. And then we kind of were talking about how the time sort of dictated how previous generations, I would say baby boomers and back, but also baby boomers on, well, they really gave us a sense to rely on strength, self-reliance, perseverance, right, for the protection of black lives and black families. And so saying all that to say, black women specifically had to be very, very tough, because they had to step up to the plate, step up to the occasion. When we go back, we talked about just Africa being very communal in general in those episodes in February, but how a lot of those things got turned up a notch when you talk about Middle Passage into slavery and the systematic decimation of black families, and how we had to really rely on communal experiences because people's parents could be dead, people's parents could be sold off, kids could be sold off, right? They ended up in places where they was either raising themselves or they just became a part of another family, because that's just how it was. So by osmosis, we've all learned to have play cousins, immediate family, whatever you want to call it, right? Because these are just the traditions of how we've had to make up the institution of family in a way that fits for us, because it looks decimated. Very, very different than people in other communities. So saying all that to say, black women were really the backbone of making sure that black families survive and have been. And that's not to take away from black men and what they're contributing, but I think in the ways that systemic racism has disenfranchised black men, black women have really had to step in and fill in the gaps, right? Which has birthed black organizations, church groups, like we were talking about, those immediate family circles, these communal groups that influence our parenting styles. We talk about being raised in a village, right? Pammy had help with me. I try to help other people that I know that have families and kids, because I know that's a big part of the fight, is like you can't do everything, right? But if you have community, then your kids feel insulated, surrounded, supported, especially in a town like LA where we live, where many people are pursuing a dream and they're actually away from their blood family. So I think that continues to persist, that thing of like, we have blood family, but we also make our own family. And black women are really a big part of that. And so that brought us to all of the various parenting styles that we talked about that showed up in these generational gap episodes, which I don't know if you want to review those and speak to those at all.
Yeah, I will speak to that a little bit. It was something I wanted to speak to though about the 50s that you were talking about.
In terms of community organizations, sisterhood?
No, in terms of education. You know, I have long posited that I think integration might have been one of the worst things that happened to us as a community. And, you know, people differ with that, you know, the quality, feel how they feel about it. But I will say, having gone to both an all-black school as a child and then going to mixed schools as a child, my experience in an all-black school was much more positive for me as a person. Educationally, it might have been different. There might have been newer school books or this or that or whatever, but the actual,
in terms of your personhood, like you becoming
a confident, well-rounded human,
not just student.
Yes. Segregation, being in an integrated environment was detrimental to that versus being in. So for the first K through 2, I went through an all-white school. And that's a little bit of an anomaly, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But then 3rd through 5th grade, I went to an all-black school. And it was so different and so inspiring and so affirming. And the principal was black and the assistant principal. The principal was white. The assistant principal was black. Most of the teachers, mixed group of teachers. It was kind of like Abbott Elementary a little bit, but there were really good role models. Yeah, really good role models of black teachers and a really good amount of black students at that school, primarily black students at that school. So I can feel how I can remember feeling very different
at one school
versus another school, and being the speaker at graduation and all of that in the all-black school.
It gave you a sense of cultural pride. I mean, honestly, going to school.
Not even just cultural pride, just pride, period, as a person.
Yeah.
Some of it was cultural, but most of it was just like, you're a person, as opposed to when I got to middle school, disappearing. Just not feeling like you didn't even exist. People didn't see you. You could be in the front of the class, raising your hand. Teacher wouldn't call on you. So there was this disappearing act.
But I say cultural pride in that. When integrating into a white school, it's a system that has to keep. First of all, people were forced to integrate. So even though black people assumed that the promise was their kids would have a better education if they went to white schools because they have access to resources that they wouldn't have at black schools, but now they have access to it at white schools. That being said, this is still a educational system steeped in based in white supremacy. So there's something to be said in, even though we're all getting the same education, if I'm approaching education with the fact that because you're black, you're inferior to me, or your brain is smaller than mine. Like, these are real things that people actually like believed, and some people still believe. So I think I say that in terms of cultural pride, in that, like, you are going to school with kids who look like you, who came from the same households as you, who came from the same cultural experience as you. So you are on an equal personhood footing. And it might be class differences or whatever, but there's no racial inferiority base at the bottom, which is something people talk about to this day about why they choose to homeschool their kids, or people are starting like community schools where their kids, just because, and we could get into HBCUs. We could get into the lack of education, but that's why people love HBCUs, right? Because it's like, you don't even have to deal with institutional racism and educational racism. You can just go to school,
deal with other stuff,
and you can deal with other stuff. But, you know, you could just go to school.
Okay. And I think my parents made a choice. My sisters and brothers were all educators, all teachers, all 4 of them. And so I think my parents made a choice based on the information that they were getting about the different schools and this, that, and the other. We weren't forced. We didn't live in a state where we were forced to go to a white school. They made a choice for us to go to these white schools.
But they were federally, if these schools had previously been white.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that.
The
That's what I mean.
school had to accept us.
The law of the land said you can't keep people out
Yeah.
because they're black.
Yeah,
Now you get to choose what school you want to go to, but we can get into tax dollars and educational racism.
The school didn't. We weren't forced to be.
But
bused
your
to
parents
this
made
school.
a choice.
But
Based
my
on
parents made a choice based on the level and the quality of education they thought that we could get at these other schools,
perceived,
which may or may not have been true. And if you've been here any length of time, you've heard me talk about in K through 2, they chose a school, but it was a school in a very low socioeconomic class for white people. It was a very, very lot of poor white people lived in the school district where a lot of black parents thought, okay, I'm gonna send my kid to this school because they have better resources. Now, kind of what that did for me was intellectually, and I don't know,
running circles around them.
Yeah, intellectually, we were running circles around most of the white kids in my K through 2 experience.
Now, granted, that has nothing to do with racial superiority or not. That's class, socioeconomics,
parenting,
money. Really, that makes the difference between. So even though these kids were white, right, and they have a level of superiority in their whiteness, but they class and their socioeconomic background puts them at a disadvantage, which is how America runs. If you don't really know, okay, the racial stuff is but it's really money. That's really
so because of that, we're off on a tangent, but it's okay, we can go. But because of that, when I got to the white school in middle school, I never thought those kids were better than us or smarter than us, because I had been at school in kindergarten through 2nd grade and knew we ran circles around those kids intellectually. So that was never in me that these kids are smarter than me. I thought I was smarter than them for the most part. And so it was very frustrating not to be able to show my intellect because of not being called on.
Right.
Yeah. So it wasn't that I felt like, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so dumb. These white kids are so much smarter than me. It was like, oh, no, I know the answer, but you're not calling on me because you don't want me to show up this kid or because I'm black.
You're black. Because we have to maintain white superiority.
So that brought us around to that twice as good thing,
Exactly. Which is how we ended up on Truthful Chat 71, which was our first dynamic mother and daughter interview. Dynamic mother-daughter, it should say duo. I actually will change that. Dynamic mother-daughter duo interview, which was Truthful Chat 71 with Iris and Joy Thomas. And so we had those kinds of conversations. We wanted to bring in another baby boomer, millennial mom duo to talk about their experiences. So it was interesting in that Pam and Iris had a lot of things in common when it came to...
That's, as y'all like to say, that's my bestie. So we've been friends for over 40 years. We've been friends since before we had kids. So we've been...
And they talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Met in New York. Yeah. All lived in the same apartment building.
Did a lot of wild and crazy things.
We're not going to get into that. It's not about y'all.
But I'm just saying, it was pre both of y'all.
We know.
So
in Iris, I was sort of her like baby before Joy was born, and then I was waiting for Joy to be born, but we moved before Joy was born, so we kind of all had like a long distance relationship until they moved to California, and then now we're all together and we do all kinds of things all the time. But that was an interesting interview in that Pam and Iris both talked about what it was like growing up as baby boomers, having to be twice as good, having this standard of whiteness to, be held to all the time. They both grew up in the North, but when they went to the South, how they had to adjust and what the treatment level was.
Iris grew up in D.C. and Pennsylvania, so kind of on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Michigan, in the Midwest.
They got stories about how they had to change things up. And so, we really had a
not being served at at black restaurants. I mean, not being served in the white restaurants, having to sit in the back, which is one of the things that you guys never knew. I don't know if you knew that that's why we were like that, but because...
I did. I watch enough documentaries.
Yeah. So if you're out with your auntie or your older black person, grandma, whatever, and they get mad when somebody tries to seat you at the back of the restaurant, by the toilet or by the kitchen, just know that's because for many, many years, that's the only place we were allowed to sit. Was that if a white restaurant served you, the only place they were allowed to seat you was near the kitchen or near the toilet. So you will,
it's generational trauma.
It's the generational trauma, but you should know it so that you're more understanding of your auntie and your grandma, and you don't think they just wilding.
And we thought that was important to highlight as millennials because we have this history, but when you get to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, especially because they've been raised around so many different groups and nationalities, all their friends are different people. Like
then they want to call you racist.
Yeah, they just don't understand. I'm like, but this doesn't come from anywhere. There's like a history of it. So that's why we thought that was an important truthful chat to have, to sort of bridge a gap, to know that we're not just talking out of our butts or making things up. Like there are other people who are dealing with these things and dealing with these gaps, right? Of being like, we grew up in a very different educational system. We did go to school with people of other ethnicities. Sometimes we were treated well, sometimes we weren't. How do we, black people have a certain amount of cultural cachet. So how did that show up in our friend groups? And were we the one black friend, you know what I mean? In a group of predominantly white kids or a bunch of Mexican kids. And like, how did that, there's just a bunch of things that we were growing up as millennials going through the educational system or navigating things that our parents never had to do because they wasn't going to their white best friend's house to spend the night.
Absolutely not.
They wasn't, you know what I mean? Listen, they weren't going places hearing their friends talk to their mama crazy and then they still got to eat ice cream and watch movies and they didn't shut the whole slumber party down and whoop them. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of cultural things that they couldn't talk us through, right? And then we also ended that conversation talking about how we grew up in the village, me and Joy, right? We had our mothers, but her mom is my auntie and Pammy is Joy's auntie. And then we have a whole other set of aunties and how they're
that are not blood relatives.
But
are very instrumental and influential in raising our children.
And that we were very connected by art, right? Everybody met in New York, either doing theater or being patrons of the theater or whatever the case may be. So that's how we all kind of formed like this immediate family bond that has followed us from one coast to the other and back and forth, depending on what's going on. But we have a very tight
generational. It is multi-generational, but it's also very culturally specific, as you said.
Sure.
Because of, again,
social economics, class, everybody come from different places. Some people grew up dirt poor in the South. Some people had very bougie upbringings. Some people, they're somewhere in between, like,
But I still think it's that holdover from slavery, a little bit of
we create our own families.
We create our own families wherever we go. From the Great Migration, from all of that, there's a history underneath that of creating a family wherever you go. Interestingly enough, I hope we get back to this at some point. Iris can trace her family directly back to the plantation that her great grandmother worked on. It's
either 3 or 4 grades.
Yeah, 3. I'm going to say 2 or 3 grades.
Okay.
And a few years ago, we went to her family reunion in Mississippi.
It was a time.
To the actual plantation where her great-great-grandmother worked, stood in the kitchen where her great-great-grandmother worked. So that whole experience, I can't trace mine that far.
We haven't done the research yet, but we will.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, to have that amount of history in your family also affects how you approach life and how you see things and how you the
close
things
the
you were taught
for the things
and how you
close
the gap. Like, listen, I can tell you right now, Iris can clean up a kitchen like you would not believe. And I'm like, and I always watch her when she does it, and I'm like, yeah, well, I could clean, but not like that. But I know it's a holdover from the way she was raised, because her grandmother and great-grandmother, they got that Mississippi clean up thing a little bit, and she watched her grandmother and stuff do that with the lye soap and with the this and with the whatever cleaning material. So she is very exacting about that. Again, a generational thing, where it comes from, the DNA of it. It's just, we have a rich history in this country, some of it good, some of it bad, but it makes us who we are.
And then we ended that conversation with me and George just talking about how, because a lot of it was generational gaps between like explaining like what did they grow up under that they kept with us, what things were different, what do they wish they had done, what did they do that they're proud of, what are some of the things that they hadn't done. Like it just became a really in-depth, deep conversation. And then me and Joy ended it just talking from a millennial perspective about us having older parents, right? Our parents aren't babies having babies. No disrespect to anybody who sort of grew up with their parents and that, but we had a little bit of a gap. So sometimes we feel like the odd people out because we be having rules and stipulations and things that some of our friends don't have, but it's because their parents aren't as old as our parents are. And then we talked about how it trickles down into our womanhood, what we take into account when we're interacting with our friends, same sex or different sex, really trying to create our own sense of village and community, and how we rear and raise our nieces, nephews, god kids. Both of us don't have kids, but we have a lot of kids that we take care of, that we're responsible. I'm a part of a couple different people's family village. So I've been, babysitting, raising them, taking them to school, like doing all of that stuff. I become a part of the fabric for those people. So how all that stuff sort of matriculated down into us and what we're keeping and what we're not keeping. So if you haven't checked out the episode, do that.
Speaking of that part too, a little bit of the keeping and don't keeping is because, again, we went through very tumultuous times. Like I was 10 during the 60s. I was 12, 11, 12 when Martin Luther King got killed, and when, John F. Kennedy got killed and all that. So seeing all that turmoil, again, cultural, Black specific, but the historical context of America specific.
America
specifically during that time affected us very greatly and affected our parenting as well. So yeah, moving on.
Big facts. All right, episode 72, or Truthful Chat 72, I should say. We kept the conversation by discussing these two topics that we felt like jumped out to us after we did that interview. And so it was sisterhood and othering. And so even though we were having a conversation about generational gaps, and I think I realized as we were doing this recap, that as much as we were talking about generational gaps, we actually found some generational commonalities within the gaps, and it was sisterhood and othering. I think those are the things that, like, even though we may have huge age differences and gaps between our parents or our grandparents or aunties and uncles, there are some things that unite us, particularly in the American experience. So we were talking about, when it comes to sisterhood, right, the resilience, solidarity, and the shared history of overcoming any sort of systemic oppression really unites women and unites all kinds of people. But in this context, as we talking about women specifically, sisterhood, anytime you're overcoming any sort of systemic oppression, you're gonna have resilience, solidarity, and shared history. But it is different. It is different when it comes to Black women, because the system of support and community has literally, as we talked about earlier in this episode, been a means of survival for our people, like for us, for our family units, for our kids, for our men, for our people. And if we don't have that, that's no bueno for us. Like I don't know that some of us would even, like, we wouldn't have survived in this country, I think. Yeah. And I think I'm sure if you talk to people from the Caribbean or whatever, wherever enslavement took place, I'm sure someone they have similar stories. And we know all kinds of people was enslaved, but we talking about us right now. So no matter the change of the landscape socially, politically, culturally, despite the way the media, as we've seen in recent years, particularly with reality shows when it comes to Black women, either taints or narrows the lens of Black women, or tends to create shock value moments for entertainment value purposes. And some of that, again, is based on parenting, right? It depends on who raised you. If you think fighting is cool and throwing drinks to the club is cool, I would venture your parents are probably Generation Xers, okay? They was probably in that Reagan era,
80s,
Yeah,
90s.
It was that kind of thing where it was 90s babies having babies. It was that kind of thing. But anyway, no disrespect. I'm just saying that's just
it's a cultural
thing.
Fact.
But despite all that, real women, and particularly authentic, real black women, all rock with each other. Anytime you on that, it's us against them. That nah, bruh, that's not. That might be some personal stuff. That might be some. At some point, you got to squash the beef because our collective, communal energy and survival has been around us coming together and clicking up rather than being far apart. So don't feed into that narrative. It happens, but don't feed into it. That's not coming from us as a community. That's coming from elsewhere for dollars or political gain or power.
For the next Real Housewives.
Okay, pick a thing. It just goes against our cultural fabric as a people. Our makeup is not to be against each other. So pick a wave. You could pick Africa on down to where the civil rights movement, the feminist waves, all of that. Okay. And even now we have digital spaces where we are creating communities, which I think is a tool people before us have never had, but it allows us to connect to each other and build sisterhood and get away from the othering of us in ways that are good and great. And we talked about how sisterhood for Black women has always historically provided safe spaces, right, for us. Allows us to vent, right, to take a stand against whiteness, being the standard, right. But that's why they need to go back and watch the other episodes so you can get you together before you be trying to be in a sisterhood. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so yeah, in these spaces you get to talk about how either microaggressions or whiteness or being othered in these spaces makes you feel having to deal with having to be twice as good to get half as much.
It was interesting because Zendaya said that. That was one of the things that in that episode that Zendaya said that. And I had not heard anybody young say that in such a long time that I didn't know it was even still a thing among young.
Girl, Beyonce probably still be saying that. And does Beyonce have to prove anything to anybody at this point?
I guess so. Her and Taylor Swift, you still be going back and forth about
that. And you saw in the Renaissance tour how she is Beyonce. She asked for a particular camera and that white man swore up and down it didn't exist. He couldn't find it. And she was like, she gave him 2, maybe 3 times to come clean. And he didn't. And she said, well, boom, I have the research right here. I Googled it myself. So anyway, saying all that to say, you could be the baddest Black woman on the planet, okay? You can have proven yourself time and time again, and these people will still question you. Anyway, that's why she has sisterhood, Destiny's Child, Mama Tina, and the like. And that's why all Black women gotta have a sisterhood.
That's what you mean about the common. There, even with all the differences that we have,
there's still some commonalities in the gap.
Generationally, there are some commonalities that do not change because we are Black women living in white America. And so there are some things that we need to work on, make sure we maintain, make sure we celebrate, make sure we affirm all of the things so that we can continue to grow.
And then again, sisterhood, you can focus on your goals, your dreams. You got people supporting you, riding with you, being there for your mental and emotional health to deal with these things. And that's vital because there continue to be things that are
reproductive care,
right? All things that
discrimination in health care, pay inequity. I, me, the queen of research, I saw something today that I didn't think about, and I feel bad that I didn't think about. But the inequity and the unfair treatment of Black women with disabilities. Like that's another level.
Because they already don't believe you in the healthcare system anyway.
So that's another level of thing that you have to find a group, find an advocate so that you are making sure
being taken care of.
You're being well taken care of.
Essentially. Yeah. And ain't nobody gonna ride for a Black woman like a Black woman, okay? And because we're all about creating generational wellness, okay, we had to look also at this episode in light of generational gaps and generational cycles of racism and sexism that we endure as mothers and daughters and what toll it takes on our mental health. Okay, so we did a lot of unpacking of that there. So check that episode out if you have not. And then our final episode, besides this one, we talked about, because it's the wrap up, Generational gaps, parenting, and overcompensation. It's been said that baby boomer parents are
Helicopter
parents, overcompensating.
We've crippled our children. They don't know how to do anything.
It's all kind of things.
They're not resilient.
They really try to comfort y'all. But
blah, blah,
anyway,
blah.
So, you know, a lot of times we hear these statistics.
And we feel bad about it. Let's be honest. We
did. She talked a lot about her guilt.
Every other day, like, oh my gosh, should I have? Why didn't I? Oh no, oh Lord, oh help. So it's a struggle.
And here's the thing, baby boomers be trying to act like millennials are so self-involved, but y'all are kind of self-involved. Every parent that has ever existed be dealing with this guilt, but y'all just act like, oh my God, we overcompensated for you guys.
No, I'm telling you, our parents did not deal with that guilt.
Well, that's because they didn't have the luxury of that because they were trying to make sure y'all didn't die.
They did not deal with that guilt at all. They're like,
but you don't know that. But see, let me heal you right now. This part of creating generational was you don't know that because they didn't have the opportunity to wherewithal. There wasn't nobody thinking about their emotional health at that point. They were trying to keep y'all alive. So they might have still felt that guilt. They just didn't express that to you because they weren't.
No, they expected what they felt.
Whatever. We don't have time to
go get a switch.
We'll do a baby boomer unpack your trauma situation. Okay, this is why millennials exist. Okay, we exist to be able to bring healing and comfort to the generations behind us and the ones coming after us. We in the middle for a reason.
Amen.
Anyway, so because I think that's a lot of the tension between baby boomers and millennials or any generations is because these experts and people who be doing these researching materials and surveys and studies, they be telling us there's beef, there's tension between you guys. So we wanted to throw that into the fire too, into this generational gap conversation.
And if there is tension, we believe in looking at the tension.
About
Let's just say that.
And so, we talked about some of the overcompensating parent symptoms for parent and child. We assessed that in our own relationship if we felt that was real or not. Some things held assessing. Up. Yeah, honestly, that's why I go to therapy every week. Some things held up. Some things we felt were very culturally specific, and we mean not like us. We meant for the whites. They're not like us. We was like, I don't know. That doesn't track for us. And then other things we felt like had nothing to do with us. So check that episode out if you want to go more in depth on what we were talking about.
Or if you feel like a baby boomer that you're like, oh my God.
If you got some guilt going on.
I messed up.
If you got some guilt going on. And again, we're not trying to blow up your spot. We were just explaining and espousing some things. But we felt that this was an important discussion to have because we want to model how communication should be had about these kind of things. It's not always pretty. There's sometimes hollering involved, as you can see on some of these episodes. But you got to at least try to start to have the conversation. Don't be getting the attitude, Pam. You be doing most of the hollering.
I didn't say anything.
Anyway, See, that's the other thing. Baby boomers are very passive aggressive. Millennials, we grew up in hip hop culture, so we be like, if you got something to say, you go ahead and say it. This is them with their prim and proper. This is that 50s. We don't
want to be hurting y'all feelings. We could come with the smoke, but we are trying.
This is what I'm trying to say. Y'all worried about hurting our feelings? We are a culture of smoke. We have spent the last month and a half talking about smoke from two dudes that we love that belong to the millennial generation. We're all about the smoke, okay? Anyway, this is not a battle of the generations because we're trying to close some gaps here. Anyway, but we were curious to investigate about where there was actually smoke, okay, and where there was perceived smoke between baby boomers and millennials, okay. And we did, and then we had some passionate discussions in that episode about the fundamental differences that we have when it comes to life milestones. Some of that is societal, economic, changing the times. Defining success, it looks very different for us than it does for them. And we be feeling the pressure from that sometimes, but that's not our problem. And trying to respect each other's point of views and values and life experiences, despite the fact they're very, very, very different. And some of it is your fault, and some of it's not your fault. But the point is
y'all's fault.
Excuse me. Economically and socially, none of this is. If anything, we have decided we're going to get out the mud. That's why there's more entrepreneurs than there ever been. Failures and successes therein. But what we decided was we wasn't going to be corporate. Some of us have decided, And some of us have decided we are going to be corporate, but we're going to flip that into our own thing. So however you get it, how you live, pimp. What we're saying is baby boomers don't have to live through the societal and economic and loving life family pressures that we're all living through. You know, me and Matt played Life yesterday. It was very interesting.
The game?
The game that we played on the Wii. And it was very interesting because we was like,
see,
some days we was like, we just, some
what
rounds.
was I doing? Playing games.
Some rounds.
What was I doing?
I don't know, girl. On Bible study, I don't know your life. Some rounds were interesting because we played like our normal, go to school, do this, do that. Me, I was like, I'm finna get a job. I'm finna do this. I still ended up getting degrees, but it was very interesting, okay? Because that's one of those games.
You play that on the Wii?
It's one of those games that could either really trigger you or you can learn some life lessons. I don't know what it did, but it was very, very interesting. Anyway, we have different life pressures than they had. And all we ask for is some, in the words of the great B2K, understanding. Okay. So this is the wrap up for all of the Truthful Chats we've had around
in the month of May, around generational gap.
And we hope that, here's the cats out the back. Okay. We're doing Truthful Chats. I hope that you will begin to do Truthful Chats. Okay. Around
that's the point.
The people that you love, that you like. Okay. Talk about these generational gaps. Are they perceived? Are they real? Have you and your family ever had any of these discussions? Okay. Do you have any commonalities? Any misunderstandings? Whatever it is, everything could be worked out.
On the table.
Everything could be worked out through a little conversation. Maybe a little communication is all we're trying to say. Okay. So, you know.
And get better.
It's all about the wellness. It's about the wellness for us. Okay. So just figure out where you are in the process. Do you need to go back? Do you need to watch some other episodes? Do you need to get you together before you start trying to posit these conversations? Okay. Do you need to do some self-work? All right. Are you good on your self-work? Do you?
I can guarantee you probably need to do some self-work.
My self-work is all right. Not everybody. So some people, you've been on the path. You've been going to therapy. You know your triggers. I'm ready to talk to my mama now. You know what I'm saying? Or I feel like.
But you better check and see if your mama is ready to talk to you. Okay? That's all I'm saying. So if you don't want to get your feelings hurt.
I'm just saying. Just assess where you are in the process. Maybe it's you, and then maybe throw some things to somebody else, and then maybe you and one person can have a conversation, or two or three or whatever. Eventually the family can grow and y'all can have larger meetings and talk through these things. So y'all are sharing and talking through your gaps, your commonalities, your
I'm going to tell you a little secret to help get your
you might learn something.
Boomer mother to go to therapy with you. Tell her that she can help you if she goes to therapy.
Jedi mind trick.
Don't tell her
Jedi mind
you're the problem. My therapist said this, that, and the other. Tell her that you're trying to understand why you're doing some of the things that you're doing, and maybe she can offer some insight and help you.
You got to make her feel like she's a boss. Like she actually has some.
Yeah, she might go with you.
Splendid input to give. Yes. Not.
And we always want to help you. You know what I'm saying? So if you tell us this might help you, we'll do it.
Until they get in the session and the therapist be like,
well, hopefully you have a good session.
Hopefully
you'll have a good therapist that knows how to walk through that.
But also your therapist, when they turn and go, baby boomer parent, have you ever thought about it? And then you'll have an ally in the room and then you'll be like, I'm not crazy, nigga. Do it. Do you have messed me up? Yeah. But then it ain't got to be you. It's not coming from you. Okay. These are the things that you've explored.
And vice versa, as the people say.
You got to be willing to take the arrows, take the L's. Okay. And take the things that you need to take and adjust accordingly. This is not supposed to be antagonistic, okay? It's temporarily antagonistic so that you can be better. I'm aware. Anyway, our point is, it'll be hard for you to create generational wellness if you never have a truthful chat, okay? So
with yourself.
Okay,
first,
with yourself first.
And then
with other people.
Yeah.
So we hope that all the episodes, but especially these episodes, going forward, just give you some tools, okay? Give you some courage to start having real-time, truthful chats with yourself, okay? We have many episodes about how to know you. Get in tune and in touch with your star player, as Cat Williams, the great Cat Williams once said. And then once you got a little practice of that, then you can do this.
Branching out.
Here's the thing.
Rippling out. Your ripples. Remember that stone thing we talked to you about? You may not have been there. Drop that pebble in there. And you're going to have some ripples.
Yeah. But also, I'll say this. Generational gaps are a really good way, I think, to Start to have conversations without having conversations, okay? Just ask your auntie. If you're going through a relational issue, ask your auntie, Auntie, I'm going through something. Can you just start, pick a thing. Auntie, I'm going through this at work with my white coworker or my so-and-so coworker. Can you help let them help you start to bridge the gap about things in your life?
And then you'll hear where the gap is.
And then you'll hear where the gap is.
That's
why I do that. Mm-hmm. That's why I do that. Mm-hmm. And then if you're a person who's been working on yourself, you can go, Auntie, have you thought about this? See, little by little, you start Jedi mind tricking. You start sprinkling in the wellness. You're creating generational wellness.
Get there and you have a conversation.
Bit by bit, little by little. Generational gaps is a great place to start. And hopefully it can help you get some information, gain some information, be a better person, start to heal.
Offer some information.
It's just a good place to start. Anyway, with that, we'll bid you adieu. Thank y'all so much for your time.
We love y'all.
Go back and watch these episodes, man, and all the ones
we will have a different topic next month, a different mother-daughter interview. We're so excited.
It's gonna be dope. It's gonna be dope.
But you're not gonna know, as Jessica said.
You were not gonna know. I totally forgot about that part. There was something else I was gonna say about the mother. Oh, thank you to Joy and Iris for coming on with us this month. We appreciate you. Thank you to Julianne for shooting that. And we're working through our stuff, so we're gonna get it all together. Anyway, you're not gonna know what's going on. If you are not subscribed on the YouTube channel, follow us on IG, Facebook, and fan base. We are at Create Generational Wellness on all the platforms, baby, because that's the goal. And we hope you're going to join us next week, the week after that, the week after that. We here every Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we haven't missed, okay? Unless there's some technological fluke in the system or in the matrix. But we're being consistent. We're usually here. We're here for you, baby. And we hope that you'll be here for us, okay? Rate, review, like, comment, subscribe. If you listen to us in the auditory universe, let the people know, yo, I dig this show. Pass it on to somebody, okay? And with that, we'll bid you adieu. Thank y'all so much. Peace.